Coming up next on the Giants Chronicles podcast, we're breaking down this year's wide receiver draft class and who I think the New York Giants should select at pick 25. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Giants Chronicles podcast. I am your host, Gabe, and today we have our first draft class video, not counting the Senior Bowl recap. But today we're going to be breaking down the wide receiver class, the top prospects in the wide receiver class. And I'll even give you some day 2 and day 3 wide receivers to talk about, just so you guys have an idea of maybe who the New York Giants will be selecting when it comes to the draft weekend nights, stuff like that. And I'm really excited because through the past couple weeks, we've kind of seen where is Joe Schoen, where is Brian Daboll prioritizing their time, and their time is worth a lot. I mean, they have so many things they have to do during this month, and they have to do just about their job. I mean, Daboll's getting ready for the offseason program that starts at the end of the month. Shane's, always on the phone with agents, stuff like that. Building a roster. So obviously wherever they're spending their most time is what they're most interested in. And it's been clear that they're spending a lot of time at these wide receiver pro days. They've gone to dinner with almost every wide receiver prospect. Jaxson, Njigba, they've gone to dinner with him. They've gone to dinner with Zay Flowers. They've gone to dinner with, they didn't go to dinner with Jordan Addison, but that's because I think his pro day got canceled due to the rain or something. They've gone to dinner with Quentin Johnson. I mean, they've gone to dinner with a lot of wide receiver prospects, and it's clear that they would prefer to get a wide receiver at pick 25 if the value matches up. Now, that's a big, big if. The value has to match up for Shane to like the pick. Shane is big on the value of a pick. So, what does that mean? It means he's not going to reach on a wide receiver who's not projected to go there. He's not going to reach on a Kadarius Toney, for example. I still, to this day, believe that was a reach. I will always believe that was a reach. He's not on our team anymore, but it was a reach. So I do think that Shane would prefer to take a wide receiver at pick 25 if the value meets up. And so we're kicking off our draft coverage here on the Giants Chronicles podcast by going over the wide receiver class. And the next couple weeks, I'll have O-line, D-line, tight ends, linebackers. So we'll be going over all of the positions here on the Giants Chronicles podcast, and we'll be going over mostly the top ones unless the Giants just don't have a reason to select that position that high. So, for example, quarterback, that will probably be towards the end of our draft coverage if we have time, or if I have time. I will have if we have time before the draft, then I'll do a quarterbacks episode as well. I'm hoping to get some special guests on to break down these positions, get their thoughts as well on these wide receiver prospects or whatever position we're going over on that podcast. So I'm excited to do that. But let's get into it, guys, and let's talk about some of these wide receivers. And we're going to start off with one of my favorite, Jaxson Njigba out of Ohio State. He's 6 feet, 197 pounds. He had 95 receptions for 1,159 yards in 2021. You're probably like, why are you giving me his 2021 stats? Well, Jaxson Njigba this past year in his 2022 season, just unfortunately injuries held him back a lot. So he's coming off a disappointing season due to the injuries, missed most of the season. However, in my opinion, he's still one of the best wide receivers in this class, and I think he will be the first off the board. He jumps off the tape immediately when I watched his wide receiver play. He's explosive. He's a fast, explosive wide receiver who can line up anywhere on the field, but he's not the fastest. I mean, some of these wide receiver prospects are like zoom in, like really fast. Some of these wide receivers are really fast. So compared to some of the other wide receivers in this class, he's not the fastest, but he's still a very fast wide receiver. He can line up anywhere on the field, whether it's in the slot or the X. In my opinion, Jaxson Njigba can line up in the X. He's probably better in the slot just for his play style, but I think he could play the X, and that's a common theme you'll see with a lot of these wide receiver prospects. He's an outstanding route runner, one of the best in the class, if not the best, in my opinion. His footwork is beyond belief. He will literally put these DBs in the dust. I mean, if you're looking for someone that will intimidate defenses, so let's just like picture this for a second. You have Darren Waller, Saquon Barkley, and a Jaxson Njigba in the same offense. I mean, that is a lot to game plan for from a defensive perspective. He's also extremely reliable. When the ball has gotten thrown his way in his college career, he has caught mostly everything that's come his way. Everything that comes his way, you can rely on him to catch, which is a key trait to a wide receiver one, in my opinion. However, like every prospect we're going to talk about, he does come with some concerns. He lacks explosiveness, like I was talking about, but I don't, when I watch the tape, a lot of people say he lacks that explosiveness. When I watch his tape, it doesn't jump off to me as a concern that he lacks explosiveness. I think he makes up for explosiveness. I think he makes up for it with his footwork, his route tree, stuff like that. That just all make over that. Now, the other concern I have with him is he hasn't had consistency as his college career. He's had 1 year of production, which was the 2021, which is the stats I told you, over 3 years with Ohio State. While he probably can play outside in the NFL, he will need some work with his frame and the ability to be a number one cornerback in the NFL. So, JSN's obviously, he's going to be a high draft pick. I think actually he's going to end up being a top 15 draft pick. I don't see him getting past the Packers or the Patriots. But with that being said, I do think that JSN could still fall to 25 if something happens on draft night. And there's always that shocker that happens on draft night. There's always that like, whoa, like what's going on kind of thing. That like last year, I feel like it was Nakobe Dean, I think it was last year. And this year we don't really know until draft night, of course, but I think JSN could be that player that slides to 25. Now, however, everything that I'm seeing right now is that JSN is going to be a lock for top 15. I don't think he's falling. Unless teams really have that concern with that injury he had this past year, I don't see him falling. Think there's a lot of wide receiver needy teams in front of us too. You got the Bears. They're looking for upgrades always at the wide receiver position. Seems like they put an emphasis on that in this past their offseason moves. The Packers maybe are looking to upgrade. The Patriots have shown interest in a wide receiver. Same with the Chargers. A lot of mock drafts have the Chargers taking wide receiver. So you got to get the point. There's a lot of the Ravens before us want to take a wide receiver. So there's a lot of roadblocks in ahead of us to take a wide receiver. And again, there's always the possibility that Joe Shane trades up a couple spots. Let's say you trade up to 20. You only would have to give up obviously pick 25, your first round draft pick, and maybe a third round. Now, does Shane want to give away that third round draft pick to get a wide receiver? I don't know, because then you go, okay, you trade that third round draft pick to get a wide receiver, then you're not getting a center in the third round, or then you're not getting a corner in the third round. So it's a very big, field of possibilities. But here's a player that I think could be in play and on the board at pick 25, and that's Jordan Addison out of USC. He's 5'11", 175 pounds, 59 receptions for 875 yards and 8 touchdowns. So Jordan Addison is an interesting prospect. I still don't really understand why Jordan Addison transferred out of Pitt. I really don't. He was coming off of one of his best year in college, 1,000 plus yard season, and he just transferred. Like I still don't understand. I don't know. Maybe it had to do with the quarterback. Kenny Pickett went in the draft. Maybe he wanted to get a fresh start somewhere else. Again, I don't do a lot of I don't follow college football as much as I do follow NFL football. So maybe there was some more background to him transferring. You guys can leave that in the comments if you know. So he entered the transfer portal after 2021 season, transferring from Pitt to USC. At USC, he was the showcase of the offense. He was their go-to guy there. And he made some catches that you wouldn't even believe at USC. I mean, he made catches that were wide receiver 1 catches in the NFL, and that, really impressed NFL scouts and NFL GMs. He's also a proven wide receiver in back-to-back years at 2 different schools with 2 different QBs, 2 different systems. So that just shows you, like, he doesn't make excuses. Like, he doesn't, and that's something in the NFL that I see a lot. Like, players will start making excuses. QB play, our offensive scheme. Like, sometimes like that will happen, and he doesn't make those excuses. He has good separation. One of my favorite traits about him is he diagnoses defenses very well. He has good separation, which is really a good trait to have. That's obviously, as he is a slot receiver, which most of these prospects we talk about will be slot receivers. Jaxson and Njigba. As we're talking about Jordan Addison, he's definitely a slot receiver. There's no flex. Like Jordan, I don't think Jordan Addison will ever be able to play the outside in the NFL. I think he's definitely meant for the slot. He's definitely more of a slot player. Now, with that being said, there is concern with Addison as well. There are 2 major concerns with him. 2 major ones. At Pitt, he had some drop problems. However, he was getting a very high volume thrown his way. But in the NFL, that's not going to slide. I mean, the NFL, if you are getting drafted as a first-round draft pick, you are supposed to come in and most likely be that wide receiver 1 for a team. And if you're saying, because I'm getting high volume, I'm dropping like the ball, no. That's not going to work. And that's you're supposed to be able to handle that. And so I do think Pitt overworked him a bit, but at the same time, in the NFL, that's not going to slide. You're getting paid. You're getting paid to do this in the NFL. So overall with Jordan Addison, he is by far one of my favorite prospects in the draft. He's pretty impressive. And again, he didn't have as great of a season at USC this past year than at Pitt. His junior or sophomore. No. Anyway, his 21 season was better than his 2022 season. However, at USC, they kind of used him a little less than they did at Pitt, which is where that drop-off in production came from. But I feel like he showed more in the USC system at USC than he did at the Pitt system. So he also, he took Kenny Pickett to another level. Like, if you remember Kenny Pickett going into the 21 season, there wasn't no one really knew about Kenny Pickett. No one really, and then he came out there and he just kind of balled out. Like, he was a great, and most of the highlights that they showed, when Kenny Pickett got drafted or in the draft process were him throwing to Jordan Addison at Pitt. That was who Kenny Pickett's target one was, and that's who most of the highlights came from. And so Jordan Addison got a lot of attention just from Kenny Pickett's highlights being played all the time during the draft process. So yeah, I like Kenny Pickett. I like Jordan Addison. I think if he's there at 25, I think the Giants will be interested. Obviously, he did an interview. I don't know exactly when the interview happened, but he did an interview with some reporters, and he said that the Giants were the ones who expressed the latest interest. So obviously, the Giants are interested in Jordan Addison. Now, I think he's on their top 30 visit list. I believe he is. I will have to check. I can actually check that right now. I know he met with them at the combine, but I don't know. I don't know if he's having a top 30 visit with them. But so Zay Flowers is having a top 30 visit with, which we'll talk about in a bit. But no, I expect Jordan Addison to definitely be an option for the Giants at pick 23 or at pick 25. And we'll see how the board shakes out, though. Again, like I said, there's a lot of wide receiver needy teams before us. It'll be very interesting to see how the board really falls. But I think overall there will be a wide receiver for the Giants at pick 25. Trying to find the visit list for you guys so we can. I definitely know he met with them at the combine. I do know that. And that has significance, except for the fact that you kind of narrow your list down after the combine. So, yep, Jordan Addison, combine visit. Yep, combine. Yeah. So they definitely have interest in Jordan Addison, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go with him at pick 25. So now let's get into another wide receiver prospect who is one of my favorites in this draft. I mean, Zay Flowers, and this is Zay Flowers out of Boston College, 5'10", 177 pounds, 78 receptions, 1,077 yards, and 12 touchdowns. Zay Flowers, coming out of Boston College, one of my favorite prospects by far. I wasn't big on him when the draft process really first started. I thought he was a little overhyped in my own opinion. But then I started watching his film and I kind of really got excited. I mean, he really impressed me just watching his film. The measurables may not say it, but he's a physical X receiver. I mean, he can play that X. Like, people will look at his height and everyone said he's a slot receiver. Don't listen to them. They're wrong. Everyone confuses him with a slot receiver. At Boston College, he played mostly in the X. I mean, he was a X receiver at Boston College. He played mostly in the X his whole career at Boston College. And he's made for the NFL spotlight. I mean, how he really got on the map and how he made his name for himself is he made plays that were just splash plays. I mean, tightroping the sideline is one of my favorite things that I watched with him, was when he would just tightrope down the sideline or, stuff like that. And that was impressive to me. I mean, that was pretty, he definitely showed that he has the traits to make those splash plays in the NFL. And at Boston College, they don't have a star QB. His QB wasn't good. Their QB play wasn't great at Boston College. Yet he did not use that as an excuse. He could have transferred. A lot of people, a lot of things that gets talked about when his name comes up is he could have transferred to a better school. He could have done the Jordan Addison and transferred to USC. They would have happily taken him over there, and he could have had a great year, and he could be the best wide receiver in this class. But no, he didn't. He stayed loyal to Boston College. He stayed at Boston College, and he's still going to be a first-round draft pick, and I think very well available at pick 25. So like we've been talking with all these prospects, he comes with concerns. But I feel like his concerns don't really concern me as much as some of the other concerns of the other prospects in the wide receiver prospects that scare me. Not as his concerns aren't as scary. So, his run blocking game is not great, but that's Saquon's always gets hit on for his pass blocking game, and they've worked on that with him. So I think you can work with Zay on building up the muscle weight. I know he's been working on that. I think he checked in that combine at 185. I know I have it down as 177 here. I think that was his college weight that I found. So I think he checked in that combine at 185 though, and obviously he has made it a priority during the pre-draft process to get his muscle weight and his weight ups to, obviously be a better wide receiver and possibly play the X in the NFL, which I think he will. My other concern is, with his size, he doesn't have a great catch radius, so he's not going to be making the Odell Beckham Jr. one-hand catch or anything. However, he still does make splash plays that are unbelievable and that are great catches. So I wouldn't make it a high concern about his catch radius. However, I do think that they limit you in a wide receiver one standpoint. But you have to think about it. You'll have a Darren Waller, the wide receiver free agent class in next year is looking really good. I mean, really good. So, obviously, I wouldn't be too concerned about the catch radius thing. That's a lot of people's biggest knock on him. That's my biggest knock on him as well. But again, Zay Flowers, obviously, I think he's the one the Giants are most interested in. I've heard a lot, Jordan Raanan, I believe ESPN has talked a lot about him being the most intriguing to the Giants. And obviously, he would fit right in Daboll's scheme. And a lot of people fear away from slot receivers going to the Giants because we have a lot of them already. However, Daboll doesn't ever, if you look at Buffalo, if you look at his time at KC or Mike Kafka's time at KC and what they did in Buffalo, they never really used size as a, knock or anything. So I wouldn't really be too concerned about it. I definitely think that they will still, they're really exploring this wide receiver class, as we have seen, like, per reports and stuff like that. Next, we're going to do a wide receiver who had a breakout year at Tennessee, and that's Jalin Hyatt, 6 feet, 175 pounds, 67 receptions, 1,267 yards, 15 touchdowns. Jalin Hyatt really just came out this year at Tennessee. Mostly widely known for his game against Alabama when he had 5 touchdowns. That was his most impressive game, leading to the Tennessee beating a top 5 program like Alabama. It was pretty impressive at the time. Now, Alabama didn't have the greatest year that they've had before, but they had still a very good year for Alabama. And so he's widely known as sometimes he plays slot, he plays X2. He's establishing himself as one of the best receivers at this class. There's people who have him as far as high as a pick 20 to the Chargers, I believe that is, and as low as the rear of the second round, or the rear of the second round. So there's a very wide frame in which he can go, and that's why I kind of wanted to go over him, because we don't know where he will go. Could he even be in play for the Giants at 25? Don't really know. They haven't showed a lot of interest in him, though, I will say. That's, I believe, the only wide receiver pro day that they didn't go to. So they haven't showed a lot of interest. However, they are having a top 30 visit with him. So obviously we'll get more information on how his top 30 visit goes with the Giants. So he's an explosive wide receiver. I mean, he does not struggle with speed. Some of his best plays are vertical routes, crossing routes, stuff like that, where he can get across the field open. And he's obviously a wide receiver who, is coming from a Tennessee program who got 10 wins for the first time since 2007 this past year, and he was a big part of it. Hendon Hooker, Cedric Tillman, who we'll talk about later, they were big parts of, kind of bringing the Tennessee program back to life. So he comes with, the only concern I see really talked about a lot about Hyatt is that the offense at Tennessee is not a pro style offense. Now when I say that I mean it's not like a complicated offense that's going to be run in the NFL. It doesn't have a lot of similar traits to an NFL offense. The route tree isn't as big as an NFL route tree. However, Hyatt struck me in his interviews at Combine. He got asked about that, and he emphasized that I will learn. Like, I can learn. I know more routes than I've shown. So that's obviously, we don't know if that's true, but that's what the Giants will use the top 30 visit for, to kind of see what is your route tree. A lot of the top 30 visits is actually teaching a playbook. There's always a story about I think it's at the Chiefs. And they brought Patrick Mahomes in for that top 30 visit, and they just taught him the whole playbook. And so, a lot of the top 30 visits are teaching the playbook, and then you go see if they can transfer that to the field after that you teach it to them. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Giants get from that, and then they can see, is this kid legit, kind of thing. Is this guy legit? All that. Now, do I think he can be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL? I think he can. I think he does bring an alpha presence to him that he can be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. Obviously, that's undetermined. However, he may not be one his first year, but maybe his second year, or maybe he's kind of someone you pair up with another wide receiver in the future. So I definitely think he can be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL, though. Next, we're going to talk about what is widely known as the best wide receiver prospect in this year's 2023 NFL Draft, and that's Quentin Johnston out of TCU. 6'4", 193 pounds, 60 receptions, 1,069 yards, and 6 touchdowns. The thing about him is that he is an X receiver. He is I believe he's like the only X receiver in this draft class. And he is just going to bring an alpha presence to your wide. He is going to be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. He is probably the only wide receiver that is known as going to be it's going to be a wide receiver one. Coming off of a year where he led the TCU passing attack, leading them on their run to the national title game. Yes, did they get smacked in that game? However, they made it. And only 2 teams can say that. The biggest thing that stands out to me about Jaxson is once he catches the ball, he becomes a difficult tackler for defenders. Jaxson has the size to power through arm tackles, but he has also shown a short area quickness to consistently make defenders miss. So what I mean by that is after the catch, he does not give up. A lot of the time, Kenny Golladay never really established the yak that we always wanted to see from him, yards after catch. He will bring that to your offense. He will be a difference maker, and he will be your team's wide receiver one. So you can definitely rely on him to be a wide receiver one for your team, and someone that will really present you with an alpha wide receiver one. Now, that is all of the top prospects in this wide receiver class. But now I kind of want to talk about the 2nd round, 3rd round, and even 5th round prospects there are in this draft. So there are a lot of receivers in this draft that are 2nd to 3rd round to 4th round projected to go. And I want to start by talking about Tank Dell out of Houston. I mean, Tank Dell I think he's 5'8", 5'9" wide receiver coming out of Houston. And he is just straight out impressive. He is going to be very good in the NFL. Now the biggest concern with him is his size. He's a demon in the slot. I mean, he had 1,000+ year season at Houston with Clayton Tune, who's another quarterback prospect that I can't wait to talk about with you guys in the future. And he'll obviously be I think he's like a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 in my mind, someone that you can't rely on heavily, but I think he can be a good wide receiver. So if the Giants don't get exactly who they want in the 1st round, they could possibly get something like him in the 2nd round, who can still come in and be part of your contributing wide receiver core. And then there's Parker Washington out of Penn State. And obviously a lot of you guys know I think that I'm a Penn State fan. And Parker Washington, he is a good wide receiver. He will be a solid wide receiver in the NFL. He is not an alpha wide receiver. He's not a wide receiver 1. I think he'll be a good wide receiver 3 for a team, or a wide receiver 2. But he's another he's another like slot guy. He can play the outside though. He's one of the most intriguing prospects. And if the Giants get through the first 2 rounds and the wide receiver is still not matching up, they could select him in the 3rd round. It would be a very good pick. Charlie Jones out of Purdue. He's an interesting prospect as well. Obviously he's I believe he's on the older side, like 23. But he's projected to be a 4th or a 5th round pick. And what intrigued me the most about Charlie Jones and watching him is he gave Joey Porter Jr., one of the best corners, or the best corner in this draft. He gave Joey Porter Jr. a hard time when Purdue played Penn State. He's the only one who actually really challenged Joey Porter Jr. So obviously that is intriguing alone to me and to a lot of people. And I definitely think he can be a solid wide receiver in the NFL. And it'd be interesting to see who picks him up and how he does in the NFL. And then my Senior Bowl standout, Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed really impressed me at the Senior Bowl. He's out of Michigan State. He's another slot guy. This is a very slot-heavy draft. You'll see a pattern with that. A lot of these wide receivers are, very slot. It's a very slot-heavy draft, which doesn't go well with the Giants have done, building their roster with Wan'Dale Robinson, Sterling Shepard, Jamison Crowder, Paris Campbell, stuff like that. But Jayden Reed, he brings a jet sweep weapon, kind of like a McCole Hardman in a way. Actually, that's a good pro comp for him, a McCole Hardman kind of player. Jet sweeps, fast, slants, getting open, stuff like that. As a depth piece in the NFL, he will be good. He's projected like a Parker Washington as well. He's projected to be around the same area in a 3rd round draft pick. And then someone else I want to talk about, Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma. Marvin Mims is going to be a very good wide. He's brothers with Denzel Mims, who's a Jets wide receiver. Marvin Mims is going to be a very good wide receiver in the NFL. Oklahoma, he's another slot kind of guy. Very fast, short slot wide receiver. 1,000+ yard season at Oklahoma this past year as their wide receiver 1, and he is going to be very good in the NFL. I mean, he is just a dominant receiver, and he's having a top 30 visit with the Giants. So he'd be an intriguing pick. I've always liked him throughout this pre-draft process, and I'm interested to see where he goes. Again, a lot of this depends on how the board falls. So if the board falls and the Giants can't get one in round one, there are a lot of guys that are good in the second round, third round, and fourth round area that you can pick up to be a wide receiver. Now, maybe they're not as good as the Jordan Addisons, Zay Flowers of the world in this draft class. However, they still offer a top speed wide receiver prospect. So obviously, the Giants are going to draft a wide receiver at some point in this draft, and I could even see them trading up for one, like I talked about a little earlier, for a Jaxson Njigba or a Quentin Johnson, someone like that. If he's still on the board and we're getting to like pick 20, I could see us trading up for possibly one of those wide receivers. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you thought about it. If there's a wide receiver I didn't talk about that you guys have your eyes on, I'd love to hear who you guys are enjoying. I'm having a giveaway will be coming out soon, possibly. So keep an eye out on for that. And the next draft video we will have here on the Giants Chronicles podcast will be a O-line and tight ends preview. So O-line will have a lot of centers in there and a lot of guards interior. And then we'll talk about some swing tackles maybe the Giants will be looking at in the later rounds. So I'm very excited to talk about those with you, positions with you guys next on the Giants Chronicles podcast. That podcast will be coming out on Monday after Easter. So if you guys celebrate, have a great Easter. And with that, let's go Big Blue.